You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. I am very happy to have back on the Goldstein on Gelt show Penny Sansevieri, who's the CEO and founder of Author Marketing Experts and a best-selling author herself. Penny, great to have you back.
Thanks for having me back. Thanks for inviting me. Love being here.
So I think we spoke probably about a year ago, maybe a little more. You were talking to us at that time about what's been going on in the world of books, especially the move to ebooks and how the internet's helping people to get more books out. So can you give us an update?
Yes, I absolutely can. First off, publishing there's been a drastic change in self-publishing, ebooks, and the acceptance of self-publishing. I mean, 13 years ago when I was first in the industry, self-publishing was sort of the little, stepchild that was never ever really invited to sit at the big guy's table. And now that's completely changed. Self-publishing has become a very accepted way to publish your book. And a lot of that is brought on by the fact that many of the New York publishers are investing in self-publishing companies like Penguin bought Author Solutions. And the other piece of that is that there are a number of the success stories are really growing. So Hugh Howey's book Wool, which was originally a self-published book and got huge success, and now the rest, as I say, is history. And also because of the hybrid authors. So the authors who are traditionally published, who choose to self-publish. And we talked about Guy Kawasaki, who has published, I think, 12 books, most of them traditionally. He published a book on Google+. He self-published that, and now he just wrote another book called Ape, Author, Publisher, Entrepreneur. And we were working with him to help him sort of get the word out about his book. But through that process, we've realized that there are a lot of traditionally published authors who are seeking to publish this way because you can get content out that much faster.
Is it because of the speed, or are there other factors that would make someone want to do that?
Well, it's the speed. Speed is number one, and it's also, and the money. So speed and money do tie, but speed is probably the number one reason, because I'll tell you, really, you've got to get quicker to market now. So for authors who are even, business authors and things like that, I was just talking to a publisher earlier today about my book, Red Hot Internet Publicity, and she said, look, I really want to take your book and I want you to publish a book a month, and I want to chop up this book and I want you to have a book a month. And I think almost every market is demanding more frequent content, particularly for fiction authors, okay? Genre fiction, these readers eat up this content. Mm-hmm. If you have an author who says, I'm going to publish a book a year, I'm sort of like, well, I don't know. I don't know that's really going to excite your reader. So it is a very changing climate. And I used to love to say that the playing field has leveled. There's no more playing field. I mean, it's a complete open game now. Anybody can publish, and it's no longer frowned upon.
So what would you say, before we go all the way that extreme, what today would be the benefit, for example, of an author staying with a traditional publisher?
Well, I mean, I think that to some degree, if they, the downside of a traditional publisher is that they don't really have control of the book. They will lose the rights. To lose their rights to the book. Traditional publishers do have resources that authors on their own may not have. So they may have access into airport bookstores. They may have access into Costco. They may have access into traditional bookstores. Now, I say may have access because so much of that has also changed, right? So much of, like, for example, you can't really get into Costco and airport stores unless you are really making inroads into the consumer market. So if your book is top in the bestseller list, you can bet that the buyer at Costco is probably going to want to put that book in her stores. But if you aren't, there's no publisher on the planet that can get your book into Costco unless they have maybe some kind of a testing relationship or something like that, where they'll test 800 books across their stores. So that the power that publishers have had is changing. And I actually wrote a piece for Huffington Post about what I felt that publishers could do to regain some of that power and momentum, because authors are like that's a very valid question. And authors are scratching their head going, I don't really know if this makes a lot of sense. Maybe I should just go out on my own. And if you have a following, Guy Kawasaki's a great example. If you have a following like he does, you can put out a book and sell like a jillion copies and be totally fine. You know what I mean? And then what you can do, right? So let's say you have your own brand, or you've got a lot of Twitter followers or whatever. You publish this book, you put it out there, and it's and it sells incredibly well, and then you go back and you sell it to a publisher, and maybe you just sell the print rights, or maybe you just sell
because you've already sold the book, so you've already got
so you've already exactly so there are a huge number of options available to authors, and I think it's wise that they look at all of them.
All right. We're talking with Penny Sansevieri, who is the head of author marketing experts and a best-selling author herself. She's been explaining to us about kind of the shift in the publishing world from traditional publishers to where people are self-publishing or e-publishing. One of the benefits I've always thought to going with a traditional publisher has been that it's kind of a stamp of approval. And in today's market, there are so many books and blogs and articles and magazines. The internet is basically infinite. How can a person make his or her book stand out?
Well, I mean, I think that, the first thing you have to do is you have to publish something that your audience actually needs. And I know that sounds a little sort of like the duh factor, but you would be amazed how many people publish books that don't really have a market because they've always wanted to do that. And I think that's great, but I think you should get clear on what your real goals are for the book before you put it out there, right? So I think that's the first phase. The next is to look at some of the trends that are in the industry. So you and I talked again just before we got on the air about how short is the new long. Okay, so shorter books in particular markets are doing really, really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Business markets tend to gravitate to that. Why? Because business owners are just so busy, right? So I think that, you want to really look at the market niches, and then you kind of have to figure out, am I just going to go with an ebook, or am I going to go with a print book, or am I going to do both? My vote would be, if you're going to pick, you're going to either do ebook or do both. I wouldn't do just a print book at all.
What do the statistics look like now in terms of which way the market's moving?
Well, the market's, the statistics are interesting because a couple things. First off, ebooks are selling like crazy, and there are huge numbers. I mean, Amazon has 1 billion ebooks on their website. Wow. Okay. Yeah, right. So
and a few of them are yours.
Right, and a few of them are mine. Only a few. But so the numbers are really staggering. So there are a lot of people publishing ebooks. People want instant access to books, so they're, so that's part of why they're doing that. But there's also, that's not to say that if I buy an ebook that I'm not going to buy the print version of that book. And some people will do that. Some people will buy both, which sounds a little ridiculous. Think, well, why don't you just buy the book once? But if for people who are traveling who prefer print books, but they don't want to necessarily take them all with them when they travel, they buy the print book, they leave it at home, they finish reading it on the ebook when they're, in the plane or whatever. So that's part of the reason why I suggest to do both, because there's some versatility. The other thing is that you can make a lot more money with ebooks, right? So Amazon has a program called KDP, which stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. With Kindle Direct Publishing, you can make 70% on your ebook, right? So I talked to an author like 3 months ago, and this is a beautiful thing. I talked to her 3 months ago. She's a fiction author. She writes romance. Now, just straight contemporary romance, nothing really weird or funny, right? So, but she publishes a book a month, which makes most people's heads spin. You think, oh my God, but they're short books, right? So they're 100 pages to 120 pages. Okay. She's selling 12,000 copies of these books a month at $3 a pop, wow. 70% royalty. right?
So math. Yeah, it's fabulous.
Right, Doug. So do the math. So when I heard that, I remember I Skyped a friend of mine and I said, I'm in the wrong business. I mean, I'm in the right business, but I need to write
you just got to write more.
Yeah. So you really, I mean, I think that understand the market needs. Start to, and you've never heard of this author. This is not a traditionally published author. Her book covers are not great, but she knows her market. Her market wants a lot of content. Her market wants short.
Well, how did she get there? So that was actually my next question, which is there are all sorts of anecdotal stories about people who are successful, like you say, but really you have a lot of people sitting at home who may be very good writers trying to write and trying to study the market, and they just can't seem to develop a system to get a following. What could they do?
Well, I think that, I do think that there are a lot of very talented writers out there. It's hard to know just generally what they might be doing wrong, okay? But I would suggest maybe start with looking at other authors in their market and see what they're doing. Here's the thing, right? Writing can be a very isolating profession. So we sit behind our computers, we write our books, we go, we spend time with the family, whatever, but we don't really spend a lot of time networking with other writers, okay? So we may go to business networking conferences and whatnot, but we're not really networking with other people. Well, you can now do that. So you can get onto LinkedIn, start networking, make a list of 5 or 10 authors in your market, see what they're doing, how much content are they pushing out, what kind of topics are they writing about, what do their books look like, how long are their books, buy their books, you know what I mean? So success leaves clues, right? So if you're really struggling to say, gosh, I'm a really good writer, maybe in some cases I've sat down with authors where all it is a matter of changing the book title, or you're marketing to the wrong audience. And here's the other thing too, Douglas, is as authors, we are way too close to our own projects. Okay. And, seriously, right? Dr. Heal Thyself. I mean, I live and breathe marketing and publishing all the time. I would never design my own book cover. I would never self-edit. I would never create my books in a vacuum, ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I need help. I mean,
right. Sure. Everyone needs, I think that is great.
Yeah, everybody needs help. So I think just really reaching out past your comfort zone and starting, and then in some cases you may want to go to some writers' conferences. You may want to go to find some maybe in your area, or I would sort of stay away from writers' groups. I mean, I think they can be helpful, but a lot of those are just kind of, let me pass around my chapter and let everybody read it out loud. And you know what I mean? I don't know if that's necessarily very productive for, if somebody's really ready to kind of get into the next phase and publish a book. And the other thing is that, the book is the new business card. Mm-hmm. So I think that for many of your listeners perhaps are thinking about, they want to expand their business, they want to grow. These are some of the topics I know that you talk about. They want to grow. They want to, advertising isn't working the way that it used to. Maybe they want to get more speaking and more media, and a book can really do that for them. Mm-hmm. Right? So I think there's an element of that piece of it too that can really benefit them.
I think that's important. Penny, we're close to being out of time, but I just want maybe you could give us one minute on what is your new book about?
Well, Red Hot Internet Publicity, which is a redo of, which is the re-release of Red Hot Internet Publicity, which I think is like the fourth update. And basically, it's everything from setting up a website. How many words should you have on your website? How do you set up a Twitter account? How do you Twitter effectively? We cover all the social media sites, including Clout, which is the newest, biggest, hottest, measuring your score. And it takes people through step by step what they need to do, including how to monetize social media, because a lot of us spend a lot of time tweeting and twittering and doing all this stuff, and people are looking at this going, how do I make money on this? And the book will tell you how.
Okay, that sounds great. Penny Sansevieri, in the last few seconds, tell us, how can people follow your work?
You can reach me at amarketingexpert.com, which is our website. You can also email me at penny@amarketingexpert.com. And Douglas, I love being on your show. Thank you so much.
All right, good. Thanks again. I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.